The night was silent, too silent for a home that was supposed to be filled with warmth. The front door eased open with a faint creak, the kind of sound that should have woken a child from sleep. But no one stirred. No footsteps hurried down the hall. No voice called out, "Daddy?" Evander Harlow stood in the doorway, duffel bag hanging heavy on his shoulder, boots caked with dust from his last mission. The porch light flickered weakly behind him, casting long shadows across the wooden floor. He stepped inside and pulled the door shut with a careful hand, as though afraid the sound would shatter the strange stillness around him. He had come home 2 weeks early. A surprise. A gift for his daughter, Amara. For months in the desert, through the suffocating heat and gunfire, it was the thought of her that kept him alive. 8 years old, curious eyes, laughter that once filled this house. Her face was the reason he endured sleepless nights. Tonight, he expected to see her running down the stairs, hair wild from bed, arms open. But the house did not welcome him. It resisted him. He frowned, setting the bag down in the entryway. Usually, by this hour, there would be at least a faint glow from the living room lamp Vivian always left on. She hated the dark. But now, the place sat in a heavy shadow. Every corner stretched into something colder than it had been before. The air smelled different too. Not warm like home. Stale, like a room shut too long. He reached for his phone to text Vivian, "I'm home," but stopped. A flicker of instinct held him back. Years of military training had tuned his senses beyond ordinary men. Something was wrong. He could feel it in the way his chest tightened. Then he heard it. A sound so faint he thought he'd imagined it at first. From upstairs. A soft, muffled whimper. Evander froze, body rigid. His eyes shot toward the staircase. Every nerve in him screamed caution. He moved carefully, boots pressing against the wooden steps, each creak echoing in the silence. He descended slowly, holding his breath, listening. Halfway up, the sound became clearer. Not just whimpering, someone crying. A child cry. His heart clenched. Amara. He quickened his pace, but silently, like he was breaching enemy ground. His hand brushed the holster at his hip. He wasn't supposed to need a weapon here, in his own house, but he couldn't shake the soldier inside him. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched out, dim and narrow. Family photos lined the walls. Birthdays, school plays, vacations. Smiling faces, a family that seemed whole. He couldn't bring himself to look at them now, because Amara's bedroom door, near the end of the hall, was glowing faintly. A thin band of light spilled from beneath the door. Evander stopped. His pulse thundered in his ears. He took one step closer, then another, and then he heard voices. Low, urgent, not Amara's. One was deep, gravelly, trembling with tension. The other smooth, feminine, laced with cruel certainty. The male voice, he knew it instantly. Cassius, his brother. "It has to be done tonight," Cassius hissed, tone sharp, like a man caught between fear and obsession. Evander's blood ran cold. Then came the woman's reply, a whisper so sharp it could cut. "She won't last long. Daniel will never know." Vivian, his wife. The breath caught in Evander's throat. His mind raced, searching for reason, for explanation, but finding only dread. His heart screamed to burst through that door, to protect Amara, to demand answers. But his soldier's instincts held him still. He pressed closer, ear to the wood. The voices carried. Inside, his daughter whimpered again. Softer now, weaker, like hope was leaving her body. Evander's hand slid down to his pistol. His jaw clenched tight. The air felt heavier with every second. Something was happening inside that room. Something his mind couldn't fully grasp yet, but his soul knew one thing. It was not the homecoming he had dreamed of. And as he stood there, outside the door to his daughter's room, listening to his brother and wife whispering in the dark, Evander realized the battlefield had followed him home. Evander kept his ear to the wood until the grain pressed ridges into his skin. The lamp inside hummed softly. Beneath it, a sound like metal brushing metal, quick, nervous. A buckle? A chain? Cassius spoke again, closer to the bed. "Hold still. If she keeps fighting, it'll leave marks." Vivian's voice floated from the dresser, cool as glass. "Marks help. They tell the right story." A cold current moved through Evander's spine. The right story. He eased his head back and let his eyes scan the hallway as if it were a kill zone. The family photos stared back at him. Fishing with Cassius at 12, Evander taller by an inch, their father's arm around only one son. Vivian at their wedding, smile flawless, eyes already assessing. Amara at 6, missing a front tooth, her hand swallowed by Evander's palm. He had always thought those frames were anchors. Tonight, they looked like alibis. Inside the room, fabric strained. A little gasp, Amara's. Evander's hand tightened on the doorknob. He felt the knurled metal bite his palm. Training whispered in his ear, assess, expose, control. Fatherhood shouted over it now. He tried the knob. It turned a fraction. The jam side. Through the sliver, his vision adjusted to the wedge of light. The corner of a lavender bedsheet, the iron footboard, a glint near the lower rail. Not rope. Bright, cold, deliberate. Chain. He forced himself not to kick the door open. Cassius's shoes scraped the hardwood. She won't scream if you do it, he muttered, like consoling himself. Just keep her still. Time, Vivian said, checking something that clicked, maybe a phone, maybe a timer. He's due back the 28th. We're clean if it happens before then. The words landed like lead. They planned the day I'd come home. Evander's breath shortened. He pictured Amara's bedtime rituals, the stuffed fox at her elbow, the nightlight shaped like a moon, the whisper she always made, "Good night, Daddy," even when he was half a world away. He pictured her making that whisper tonight with a gag in her mouth. A tremor ran through him he couldn't file under any training mnemonic. He peered again. A pale wrist jerked against something. A muffled sob. He saw a sliver of her bracelet, the one he sent from overseas, stamped with a tiny star. A dark line cut beneath it, bruising where metal kissed skin too long. Cassius swore under his breath. Knife, he said, closer to the nightstand. A drawer slid. Steel lightly tapped wood. Evander's thumb eased the pistol's safety. The familiar click was a private vow. He angled his shoulders, set his feet for a clean entry. Left foot forward, muzzle low, eyes high. He counted his breath. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. The terror didn't leave. It sharpened. Don't be dramatic, Vivian murmured. Open the window. Make it look like she panicked. Daniel will grieve, then he'll leave. He always does. Evander's jaw locked. He remembered their last call, the patience in her words that felt practiced, the way she had said we'll talk when you're home, like a line from a brochure. He had chalked the distance up to deployment. Now the distance had a room, a knife, and his daughter inside it. He slid one boot, half an inch back, weight balanced. On 3, he'd breach. He'd sight Cassius first, then Vivian. He'd get to Amara. He would. 1. A floorboard whispered behind him. 2. A faint exhale that was not his. Barely there, like someone holding very still at the far curve of the hallway. 3. He froze, head tilting a degree. The sound came again. The softest brush of fabric against paint, the controlled patience of someone trained to wait. Evander didn't turn. He kept his face to the door, eyes steady on the crack of light, but the back of his neck burned. The house had grown a new shadow he hadn't accounted for. Inside, Cassius said, "Ready." "Vivian, do it." Evander counted a new 3, one hand on the knob, the other steady on the pistol, every sense split between the thread in front of him and the one just out of sight behind. Caught between the child he had to save and the invisible breath stalking the hallway. The next move would decide everything. Evander's breath anchored him in the narrow hallway. The door in front of him pulsed with danger. The silence behind him pressed against his back like a knife. He stood locked between 2 threats, each demanding his attention. Inside the room, Cassius's voice cracked with urgency. "She's struggling again. Hold her legs." Vivian's tone was low, irritated. "Stop whining. You're acting like you've never held a knife before." Evander's knuckles whitened on the pistol grip. He could kick the door down now, but the second shadow behind him still moved. Barely, but enough. Someone was there, waiting, careful not to reveal themselves too soon. A whisper of leather brushed against the wall. He shifted his eyes, not his head, toward the family photo closest to him, its glass pane reflecting a thin, dark blur at the far end of the hallway. A figure. too still to be casual, too patient to be innocent. The soldier in him filed possibilities. Intruder, accomplice, or worse. His brother and wife already stood inside with his daughter. If there was someone else, it meant this was bigger than betrayal. It was coordination. He steadied his breath. Don't divide. Prioritize. Amara first. The shadow would reveal itself soon enough. He angled his stance, pistol angled toward the door. He counted his timing against the voices inside. Do it, Cassius, Vivian pressed. Before she makes more noise. The chains rattled. Amara whimpered again, softer, desperate. Evander's heart clenched. His military training screamed patience, but a father's instinct shattered it. He moved. The door flew open with a violent crack, with smacking against the wall. Light spilled into the hallway, cutting through the dark. Evander stormed in, pistol raised, eyes locking first on Cassius. His brother froze, knife inches from Amara's shoulder, his face caught in the strange limbo between defiance and shame. Drop it, Evander barked, voice sharp, commanding. Amara's tear-streaked eyes widened in shock and hope. Vivian didn't flinch. She leaned against the dresser, arms crossed, as though she had been expecting this. Her gaze cut straight through him, cold and unreadable. Cassius's lips curled into a grin. A shaky laugh broke from his chest. You weren't supposed to be here, he muttered, knife still trembling in his grip. Drop it. Evander's pistol never wavered. His soldier's tone filled the room, the kind that silenced men in war zones. But Cassius didn't move. His laugh grew hollow and twisted. He tilted his head, eyes glinting in the lamplight. And yet, here you are. Evander's finger tightened on the trigger. Just enough pressure to remind himself he was in control. Behind him, the hallway floor creaked again. He didn't turn, but the sound wasn't random. It was deliberate. The shadow had stepped closer. Whoever waited in that darkness wanted him to know he wasn't alone. Vivian's lips curved into a faint, mocking smile. Go on, Evander. Pull the trigger. But you want to see who's come to watch first. The words clawed at his focus. He risked half a glance toward the hallway. There, framed in the doorway, stood a man in plain clothes, mid-40s, his face half hidden by the hall shadows. His hand rested on his hip where the outline of a holster bulged beneath his jacket. Evander's stomach twisted. The man stepped forward, eyes heavy, unreadable. His badge glinted briefly in the light. Cassius. Vivian, the stranger said, voice steady, carrying authority. It's over. We've been watching you for months. For a fleeting moment, relief washed over Evander. Reinforcements. Someone had known. Someone had been watching over Amara when he couldn't. His pistol remained locked on Cassius, but his chest eased by a fraction. Amara's sobbing quieted, her gaze darting between her father and the new arrival with fragile hope. Cassius's grin faltered. Vivian's eyes narrowed, but she didn't move. The stranger stepped fully into the room now, pulling his jacket aside. The holster was real. The badge was real. His presence filled the room like law itself. Evander allowed himself a breath. For the first time since he walked into the house, he thought maybe this nightmare could end without blood. But then he noticed it. The man's eyes weren't on Cassius, weren't on Vivian. They were on him, and his hand slid, slow but deliberate, toward the grip of his weapon. The battlefield had not only followed Evander home, it had been waiting for him. The man's hand settled on his holster like a verdict. Sergeant Harlow, he said, voice level, almost tired. Weapon down. Now. Evander kept his aim on Cassius, but the syllables slid under his skin. The badge flashed again as the man stepped fully into the light. Theron Vale, letters clean, unscuffed, like a nameplate on a new door. His eyes, though, weren't new. They looked like someone who'd already decided the ending. Holster it, Theron repeated. You're escalating a hostage situation. A dry laugh popped out of Cassius. He still clutched the knife, too close to Amara's shoulder. Hear that, brother? You're the problem. Amara made a small sound, half whimper, half hope, eyes darting from her father's pistol to the new gun in the doorway. Vivian didn't move. She leaned into the dresser like a woman judging a painting, a faint reflection of Evander's raised weapon cutting the mirror in two. Evander didn't turn the muzzle. Not an inch. Back away from my daughter, he told Cassius. Theron, if you're real police, you know the priority. Separate the threat from the victim. Theron's firearm cleared leather. The sightline snapped to Evander's chest. My priority is keeping anyone from getting shot. Holster yours, Sergeant. The rank sat on the word like a weight. He'd read the service record, or someone had handed it to him. Cassius, Theron said, eyes never leaving Evander, step away from the child. Cassius smirked, but shuffled half a step, knife still in play. Not far enough. Not safe. Vivian, Theron added, almost polite, hands where I can see them. Her arms unfolded, palms up, expression smooth. Of course. Evander's mind ran the calculus. If he pivoted to Theron, Cassius had a heartbeat to drive steel into Amara. If he kept on Cassius, Theron had the clean angle. Every route bled. Sergeant, Theron said, softer now, coaxing, we've had calls. Neighbors. Incidents. You came back early, keyed up. Put the gun down. We'll sort it out. Incidents. The word ticked in Evander's head like a metronome. He pictured the porch light he hadn't replaced. The trash cans left crooked at the curb. Details that became narratives when someone curated them. We've had calls. By whom? When? Well, he was gone. Those incidents happened to line up with my deployments, he said. Funny timing. Theron's jaw flexed once. Funny or not, I won't ask again. The lamp buzzed. The chain at Amara's wrist trembled against the bed frame, a bright ring biting soft skin. She met Evander's eyes and shook her head, a tiny, desperate no. Don't leave me alone with them. He felt the meaning like a pull on his ribs. Theron, he said, pitching his voice steady. If you're here for them, take them. If you're here for me, say it plain. For the first time, something like a smile creased Theron's mouth. Not warmth, approval at a correct answer. Holster. The weapon. Vivian's gaze slid to Theron. A breath, so small no one but Evander would have caught it, left her lips like a signal received. Evander felt the tilt. He saw it in the spacing. Theron comfortable at his angle. Cassius staying just close enough to hurt. Vivian calm in her corner, already composing the story she'd tell. Hostile veteran. Domestic disturbance. Tragic outcome. The kind of headline that wrote itself. He lowered his voice, for Amara more than anyone. Baby, look at me. Her eyes locked to his. I'm here. On the dresser. A phone screen glowed briefly in Vivian's palm before going dark. A timer, a message, a click. Evander banked the detail without showing it touch him. He shifted his weight a fraction, enough to look like compliance, not enough to give anyone a window. His left hand slid toward the holster. His right kept the muzzle steady. Cassius licked his lips. The knife tip trembled. Do it, he whispered, not to Evander, but to the room, to the plan. Theron's stance eased by a hair, as if a knot in him uncoiled. Good. That's good. Evander's pistol dipped an inch. 2. Theron's sight line floated with it, following, satisfied. Now kick it, Theron began. Evander moved. Not the gun, his body. A half step that didn't belong to surrender, but to a drill burned into him years ago. Changed the picture. His left shoulder rolled, drawing Theron's muzzle a degree off center. His right hand snapped the sight back to Cassius as his left forearm cut across to guard his core. Drop the knife, he barked, the command cracking like a starter's pistol. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then 3 things happened at once. Amara jerked her wrist, chain screaming against iron. Cassius flinched, knife hitching upward in raw, stupid reflex. And from the hall behind Theron, a second shadow peeled off the wall. Fast, silent, like a piece of the house coming to life. Evander saw only the first motion, the glint of another barrel, lower and to the side of Theron's. Not backup, not help, a flank. He didn't fire. Not yet. He swallowed the trigger and the terror and the certainty that the story already had pages he hadn't been allowed to read. Sergeant, Theron said, voice gone knife thin, last chance. Evander's answer was not words, but a look past Theron's shoulder into the new darkness forming there. A message he hoped the girl on the bed could read in his face. I see it. I see all of it. Hold on. The room held its breath with her. The next second would decide whether the night ended in sirens or silence. The silence fractured. Amara's chain rattled like a scream of metal. Cassius tightened his grip on the knife, the tremor in his arm betraying both fear and hunger. Vivian's lips parted in the faintest curve, her eyes flicking between Theron and the new figure in the hallway, like someone watching a chessboard approach checkmate. Evander's body stayed taut, every muscle holding him between firing, falling, or fleeing. His pistol remained steady on Cassius, but his focus had split. The corrupt detective in front of him, the second shadow behind, and the innocent child tied to the bed in the middle of it all. The second shadow stepped fully into view. A man, younger than Theron but dressed the same, plain jacket, badge gleaming at his belt. His gun was already drawn, low and ready. He moved with practiced silence, like someone who had done this countless times. Evander's gut dropped. Two of them. It's organized. Theron's voice broke the stillness. Sergeant Harlow, your service record's impressive, but this isn't a battlefield. Put it down before you make it worse. The words came calm, but the angle of Theron's gun told a different story. It was aimed not at Cassius, not at Vivian, but at him. Always him. Worse. Evander's voice was gravel. He nodded toward the bed. That's an 8-year-old child you're letting them torture. Cassius laughed under his breath, the sound jagged and wrong. He pressed the flat of the blade against Amara's shoulder, not cutting, just resting there. Enough to make her flinch. Daddy, her muffled cry ripped through the gag. Evander's heart clenched, but his voice stayed steel. Move that knife 1 inch, and I'll drop you before you blink. Cassius's grin widened. Do it. Go on. You'll hit her too. Vivian's voice slid in smooth, venomous. Listen to him, Evander. For once in your life, listen to your brother. You've always thought you could control everything. Not tonight. Evander flicked his eyes toward her, and for a moment the years unspooled. Her wedding dress, their first apartment, the soft words she used to say before bed. All of it now felt like a script rehearsed for this very moment. The second man finally spoke, voice low even. Theron, we don't have much time. Theron's jaw clenched. I know. Evander caught it. Now we don't have time to save the girl. Now we don't have time before this escalates. Just we don't have time. A deadline. A plan. A schedule he wasn't supposed to disrupt. Vivian uncrossed her arms and walked 2 slow steps toward the bed, heels clicking against the hardwood. Her calmness was worse than Cassius's madness. It was cold, deliberate, final. She leaned toward Amara, brushing hair from the girl's damp forehead. She won't last long, Vivian whispered. Evander's vision tunneled. His trigger finger twitched ready. But Theron barked, don't, and shifted his stance, gun pressing harder into his line. The younger officer mirrored him, 2 muzzles aimed square at Evander's chest. For a soldier, it was the perfect trap. Every escape route led to death, his or Amara's. He inhaled, forcing clarity through the storm. His eyes darted back to his daughter. Amara was trembling, but her eyes, wet, wide, locked onto his. A child's plea sat in them, but something else too, trust. Evander swallowed hard. He couldn't fire, not yet, but he could still fight. Theron, he said, his voice low, controlled. If you're going to make me the villain, at least let me die knowing why. Why her? Why my family? The question hung like smoke. For the first time, Theron's expression cracked. His gaze slid, just for a fraction, to Vivian. Vivian's lips curved into a satisfied smile. And in that microsecond, Evander understood. This wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just Cassius's madness or Vivian's greed. This was a deal, a pact, and Theron wasn't here to stop it. He was here to finish it. The realization cut through him like fire, but it also gave him something he hadn't had until now. Certainty. They were all against him, which meant he no longer had to hesitate. His stance shifted, imperceptibly small but enough. The soldier in him set the board. The father in him made the vow. No one leaves this room with her. And as the lamp buzzed overhead, as Cassius's knife hovered too close, as Vivian's whisper still hung in the air, Evander's finger curled 1 ounce tighter against the trigger, ready to rewrite the plan they thought they controlled. Evander didn't blink. The room held like a set spring. One wrong breath and it would snap. Last chance, Theron said, muzzle fixed on Evander's chest. Evander let his shoulders sag a fraction, enough to read as surrender. Okay, he said softly, eyes on Amara, not the gun. Okay. He lowered the pistol an inch more. Cassius's grin twitched wider. Vivian's chin lifted, the faintest signal. The younger cop shifted left, opening a lane Evander had been measuring since he stepped into the doorway. Kick it here, Theron ordered. Evander moved, just not the way they wanted. His left hand flicked, catching the edge of the nightstand drawer with his fingertips. The drawer slammed shut with a crack. Instinct pulled Cassius's eyes toward the sound. Evander's right hand snapped up. One precise shot. The lamp exploded. Glass rained. The room plunged into a dirty half-dark, lit only by the streetlight slashing through the blinds. Gunfire answered. Theron's shot tore past Evander's shoulder, heat scoring skin. The younger cop fired wide. Plaster jumped from a doorframe in a chalky puff. Amara screamed into the gag. Her chain shrieked against iron. Evander rolled offline, pivoting on the balls of his feet, changed the picture, and in the same motion fired again, not at Cassius's chest, but at the knife hand. Steel clanged to the floor. Cassius howled, clutching his wrist, body folding to protect the pain. Don't shoot. Don't shoot, Vivian cried. Too loud, too performative. Hands up as she stepped backward toward the dresser, foot nudging something along the baseboard that glinted once and disappeared under the hem. The fallen knife shepherded out of sight. Theron advanced 2 paces, night sight steady, voice knife thin. Get him a fire at you, he snapped to the younger cop, not bothering to hide it now. We need the narrative tight. The words slid ragged into Evander's blood. Narrative. Tight. Not rescue. Not safety. Daddy. Amara choked, the gag wet with tears. Evander dove for the bed, taking 2 rounds in the mattress as he moved. Stuffing burst like dandelion seeds. He got his body between her and the gun's shoulder burning, left palm finding the cold bite of chain. He traced it to the padlock, small, cheap, the kind that failed under torque if you knew how to lie to metal. Breathe, baby, he whispered. Knees in. Head down. He angled his pistol toward the ceiling and sent a round through the smoke detector. The unit shrieked, high and piercing. In the confusion, Theron swore. The younger cop flinched, blinking against the strobe of the dying lamp and the white dust hanging in the air. Cassius crashed into Evander's ribs from the side, a desperate tackle. Evander twisted, let the momentum carry, and drove Cassius into the footboard with his forearm across the throat. The bed frame screamed. Amara winced, but held still like he'd asked. Look at you. Cassius spat, breath hot, eyes wild. Hero again. Always the hero. Evander bared his teeth, less a smile than a refusal to break. Breathe through your nose, he told Amara, not looking away from his brother. To Cassius, where did you get the badge, huh? What did you pay for it? Cassius barked a laugh that sounded like a sob. You think money buys a man like that? Try leverage. Theron's voice cut through, closer now. Enough. Harlow, gun on the floor, or I end this. Vivian's silhouette shifted at the dresser. A phone screen ghosted blue over her face, then went dark. Clock's moving, she said quietly, to Theron, not to Evander. Copy, the younger cop muttered. We pivot. Make him the event. Make him the event. The phrase lodged like a splinter. The plan had changed the second Evander walked through the door. If they couldn't erase the child cleanly, they would erase the father messily and let the headlines do the rest. Evander slammed Cassius's wrist to the floorboards and heard a crack. Not bone, but the cheap bracelet Cassius wore, beads scattering like seeds under the bed. Cassius whimpered, rage crumbling into something smaller. It took the edge off Evander's hate. He didn't need to break the man to save the girl. He dragged his forearm across Cassius's face and pushed away, sliding back to the padlock. He holstered the pistol one-handed, madness in any other room, and bared his teeth against the pain in his shoulder as he worked the lock with the broken metal clip he'd slipped from a nightstand drawer when he'd slammed it. 3 seconds of blind feel. 4. The old trick came back like muscle memory from vehicles seized in sand. Come on, he hissed. The lock popped. The chain spilled from the rail. Amara's breath hitched. Theron's silhouette, loomed over the bed now, muzzle down angle. Don't! Evander swung the chain like a length of steel rope. It caught Theron's wrist with a chime and a curse. The barrel jerked skyward. A shot tore a bright hole in the ceiling. The younger cop moved in on Evander's flank, but caught his toe on the beads skittering underfoot. He stumbled, shoulder slamming the wall. The floor number, 1-2, flashed in Evander's head like a cadence. He surged, pivoted, and drove the heel of his hand into the man's jaw. The gun dropped. Evander kicked it under the bed. Stop! Vivian's voice broke. Not out of fear, but out of fury at a plan slipping. She reached down for the knife she'd brushed beneath the dresser. Evander saw the bend in her spine, the intent in the hand, and couldn't spare the bullet. He snapped the chain again, this time at the dresser's mirror. It shattered into 100 eyes. Vivian recoiled, a cut opening along her forearm, the knife clattering back into the open. Amara lay rigid, wrist free now but hands still numb. Evander ripped the gag away and cupped the back of her head. Under the bed, he said. Go! She slid like a breath, disappearing into the belly of the frame. Theron recovered, fury narrowing his face to lines. You just wrote your ending, he said, and for the first time, Evander heard something personal in it. Maybe, Evander answered, chest heaving, pistol back in his hand, but not hers. Partial truths lay all over the floor now, glittering like glass. Leverage over a cop, a schedule that didn't include mercy, a story they meant to sell to the world. The full shape of it stayed just out of reach, but Evander didn't need the whole picture to know the next move. The siren of the smoke detector screamed. The streetlight blinked. The room smelled like plaster dust and burnt filament. Evander set his feet. Round 2, he said, and meant it. The room pulsed with chaos. Smoke alarm shrieking overhead. Glass crunching beneath boots. Dust still drifting like a battlefield haze. Evander stood with his pistol raised, blood sliding warm down his shoulder where the graze burned. His chest rose and fell, every breath measured, every nerve drawn taut. Cassius writhed near the footboard, clutching his injured wrist, muttering curses that broke into half-sobs. Vivian pressed her cut arm with a sheet torn from a bed, her expression twisted with both pain and calculation. And Theron Vale, still standing, chain welt red across his wrist, leveled his gun with a predator's patience. The second officer lay dazed against the wall, weapon lost under the bed. Amara crouched beneath the frame, her small body pressed into the shadows, eyes wide and glistening. Evander kept half his focus on her, half on the 3 threats still upright. Protect the center. Keep the field. Theron's voice cut the noise like steel. This ends now, Sergeant. Put the gun down, and maybe the girl walks out. The words landed cold, practiced, like a man who had rehearsed them 100 times. But his eyes flicked to Vivian just once, and Evander caught it. They were still in sync, even with the plan unraveling. You want me dead? Evander said flatly. Not her. Not really. I'm a story you're writing. Vivian's lips curled. Finally, he catches on. Amara whimpered from under the bed. Daddy. Evander steadied his breathing. You made her part of it, he said to Vivian, eyes locked. Our daughter. You chained her here. Vivian's face didn't crack. If anything, it hardened. Don't call her ours. You gave me years of loneliness, Evander. Deployment after deployment. You left me a ghost in this house. She nodded toward Cassius, gave me attention. He gave me reason. Cassius lifted his head, eyes glassy but alive. She loves me. Not you. Never you. The words tried to bite, but Evander let them slide. He had heard confessions in war zones. Half-truths screamed at checkpoints. These weren't weapons. They were excuses. Theron inched closer, sight locked on Evander's chest. Keep talking, he murmured, but lower the weapon. Evander's eyes didn't waver. What's your piece, Vale? Why betray your badge for them? Theron's mouth twitched. Not a smile, but something close. Because soldiers like you think you come back heroes. You don't. You come back liabilities. A dead veteran with a troubled history? That headline pays better than you think. Vivian's laugh was sharp, triumphant. Insurance, pension, sympathy. And with them gone, I get all of it. No more playing the perfect wife to a man who's never home. Evander's chest tightened. Amara's muffled sob knifed through the air. She's listening. She's hearing all of this. He swallowed the rage and kept his voice calm. You planned every detail, but you didn't plan for one thing. Theron narrowed his eyes. And what's that? Evander's stance shifted, weight balanced, pistol steady. Me being alive right now. In that instant, the second officer groaned and tried to rise. Evander seized the window. He pivoted, one sharp motion, and fired. Not at a body, but at the floorboards near the man's knee. Wood splintered. The officer yelped and collapsed back down, hands over his head. Theron flinched. It was subtle, a fraction, but enough. Evander lunged sideways, pressing himself against the dresser for cover as Theron's shot ripped past, shattering another photo frame on the wall. Vivian screamed, ducking low, blood streaking her arm. Stop firing. You'll bring them sooner. The slip caught Evander's ear. Them. Who? Neighbors already stirred by gunfire? Or someone else expected to arrive? Amara crawled out from under the bed, trembling, eyes fixed on her father. Evander's heart seized. Back, he shouted, and she froze, ducking behind the mattress once more. Theron advanced, eyes lethal. You won't walk out. Harlow, this is your grave. Evander met his stare, every muscle coiled. Maybe, but you're coming with me. The tension bent tighter, seconds stretching long as wire. The smoke alarm shrieked, Cassius groaned. Vivian's breathing hissed through clenched teeth. Amara's sobs broke in the pauses between. And then, from somewhere outside, faint but undeniable, sirens. Everyone froze. Theron's face hardened, fury flashing like a blade. Vivian's composure cracked. Her eyes darted to the window, panic flickering at the sound. Cassius muttered, No, not yet. It's too soon. Evander's pulse spiked. Help! Finally. But Theron's next words gutted the fragile hope. Not the ones you think. The sirens wailed louder, closer, an arrival not of salvation, but of something darker. The battlefield was still shifting, and Evander realized with a chill that the worst hadn't even begun. The sirens cut sharper through the night, a warbling cry that should have promised rescue. But the look on Theron Vale's face told Evander otherwise. They're early, Cassius muttered, dragging himself against the bed frame, his wrists still limp from the earlier blow. His voice was tight, frantic. You said we had more time. Vivian pressed her wounded arm with a sheet, fury flashing in her eyes. You told me they wouldn't show until it was done. Theron didn't break his aim. His weapon stayed trained on Evander, but his jaw flexed, teeth grinding. They moved the schedule. We adjust. Evander's pulse hammered. Whoever those sirens belonged to, they weren't here for justice. He glanced at Amara, still hidden behind the mattress, little hands clutching the sheet so hard her knuckles were white. He needed her out of this house before those new arrivals stepped through the door. Outside, tires crunched over gravel. Doors slammed. Heavy boots hit pavement in practiced rhythm. Not panicked neighbors. Not patrol cops responding to stray gunfire. A unit. Organized. The younger officer, still on the floor from Evander's strike, groaned. Theron, they'll be inside in 2 minutes. Theron's eyes flicked to Vivian, then Cassius. Hold positions. When they breach, the story writes itself. Rogue veteran snaps, kills family, shoots at police. Clean, contained. We get out with a commendation. Vivian's face softened into cruel calm. Finally, the truth dressed in something believable. She looked at Evander, her voice a blade dipped in honey. You've been a ghost to us for years. Tonight, you'll be one for good. Evander clenched his jaw, ignoring the ache in his shoulder. He calculated distances, dresser to door, door to stairwell, stairwell to the kitchen exit. Impossible with 3 armed enemies and Amara still chained to fear. Unless he turned the battlefield itself into a weapon. Amara, he whispered, loud enough for her, but no one else. Remember hide and seek? On 3, you crawl fast. Her head poked up, eyes wide, tears streaked, but she nodded. Trust, still there, fragile but unbroken. Theron caught the flicker of motion. Don't even think about it. He advanced 1 step, muzzle following Evander's heart. The sirens wailed right outside now. The front door downstairs splintered. Voices barked, short, commanding, not the tone of rescue but occupation. Entry left. Secure the hall. Boots thundered on the stairs. Evander's grip tightened. He spoke, not to Theron, but to his daughter. 1. Theron's head tilted. Confusion etched into his brow. 2. Cassius lurched upright. Knife clutched in his good hand again. Don't you? 3. Evander fired, not at a body, but at the dresser mirror. Glass exploded into a blinding spray. Shards and dust filled the air, turning the lamplight into a storm of fractured beams. Amara bolted, crawling low, skimming across the floor toward the hallway like a shadow. Grab her! Vivian screamed, lunging, but Evander was faster. He shouldered her aside, slamming her back into the dresser with a grunt. Theron's gun barked, bang bang, the rounds ripping plaster where Evander's head had been seconds before. Boots stormed the hallway outside. Black figures flooded in. Helmets, rifles, tactical vests. Not police uniforms. Private operators. Masks hid their faces, but their movements screamed precision. One pointed. That's him. For a heartbeat, Evander thought they meant Cassius. But then he saw. Every rifle sight snapped to him. Theron didn't lower his weapon. He simply smiled. See, Sergeant? Even the cavalry knows the villain. The operators fanned wider into the room, rifles steady. Vivian straightened despite her bleeding arm, her chin high, as if welcoming allies. Cassius crawled toward them, bloodied, panting, but grinning like a child safe in his mother's arms. Evander's stomach dropped. They were all in it. Amara froze in the doorway, caught between her father and the swarm of masked men. One operator shifted, rifle angling toward her. No! Evander roared, stepping between, pistol raised. The room teetered on the edge of slaughter. For a moment, everything slowed, the sirens fading, the boots stilled, the smoke alarm wailing above them like a dirge. Evander locked eyes with his daughter, and all the noise fell away to her small, trembling voice. Daddy, please. He didn't lower his gun. He didn't step back. The father and the soldier became one, standing in the middle of a trap with nothing left but resolve. And the operators, faceless and silent, waited for the command that would decide who lived and who died. The operators filled the room like a black tide, rifles steady, masks blank. Their presence choked the air more than the plaster dust. Amara froze at the doorway, her small frame caught in the glare of their weapon-mounted lights. Every instinct in Evander screamed to grab her, shield her, but the wall of barrels made one thing clear. The wrong move meant her body on the floor. Theron Vale lowered his gun a fraction, finally at ease now that the reinforcements had arrived. His voice carried smug calm. Stand down, Sergeant. The narrative's ready. All we need is your body on the ground. Vivian dabbed at her bleeding arm with the sheet, eyes glinting. Don't make it messy, Theron. He deserves a clean exit. For Amara's sake. Cassius, pale and sweating, dragged himself toward the operators like they were salvation. See? They came. They know I was right. His laugh was ragged, half-mad. He always takes everything. Not this time. Evander's pistol stayed raised, but his mind raced. 10 operators. At least 2 already inside the room, more crowding the hallway behind them. Amara just 3 steps away from being swallowed whole. His shoulder screamed, his blood trailed warm down his sleeve, but his body remained coiled, alive. He locked eyes with his daughter. Amara, crawl back, under the bed. Now. A rifle swung her way. She moves, she dies, one operator barked. His accent clipped, European, not local police. Mercenaries. Theron's smirk widened. You see, Sergeant, this isn't about her anymore. It's about you. You're the threat. The troubled veteran who snapped. We write the report, we bag the evidence, we collect the rewards. Evander's stomach turned. Insurance money. Pensions. Blood bought with paperwork. He spoke evenly, never letting his tone break. If you wanted me dead, you could have done it 6 months ago. Why drag her into it? Vivian stepped forward, brushing hair from her face with crimson fingers. Because without her, you wouldn't come back. You wouldn't walk into the perfect trap. She brought you here, and now she anchors you. Amara whimpered, tears carving lines through the dust on her cheeks. Cassius licked his lips. Do it, Vale. Finish him. Theron gestured toward the operators, a simple nod. Two advanced, rifles locked on Evander. The soldier in him ran the math, distance, angles, timing. He couldn't outgun them head-on, but he could outthink them. Every battlefield has terrain, even a bedroom. His eyes flicked to the shattered mirror on the floor, to the smoke detector, still shrieking, to the night light by the bed, glowing faint but steady. Small things, but in combat, small things bent fate. He spoke again, voice loud, carrying over the alarm. You think you control the story, but you don't, because she's watching. He nodded at Amara. Theron frowned, half turning. What? Evander moved. He fired into the ceiling fan. The bulb shattered, sparks raining. Darkness surged, broken only by weapon lights jerking wildly. Amara screamed and dove back under the bed as instructed. Evander dropped low, rolling behind the overturned mattress. Gunfire erupted, shredding the frame, filling the room with choking fabric fluff and plaster dust. He returned fire, not at bodies, but at the floorboards near the operator's feet. Wood split, dust rose thicker, sight lines broke. Cassius wailed, diving for cover. Vivian shrieked, clutching her head. Theron's voice roared above the chaos. Hold your fire. Don't kill the girl. The words confirmed it. For all their cruelty, Amara wasn't expendable. Not yet. She was leverage, a piece of the puzzle Evander hadn't fully seen. Breath ragged, Evander reloaded, pressing his back to the dresser. His mind raced. If they need her alive, I still have time. But time for what? The operators reformed in the dark, beams crossing like blades. Their leader's voice cut through. Flush him out. Alive if you can, dead if you must. Amara whimpered from beneath the bed, but her voice carried a small, desperate strength. Daddy, please don't let them take me. His grip tightened on the pistol. Every nerve, every scar, every instinct screamed that the fight was about to climb higher, uglier, bloodier. Evander inhaled, steady, soldier calm in the storm. He was outnumbered, outgunned, betrayed, but not broken. The battlefield had shifted again, and this time, he would decide where it ended. The room was a storm, sirens fading outside, alarms wailing inside, dust thickening every breath. Evander crouched low behind the mattress, pistol drawn, blood still dripping from his shoulder. Across the haze, beams from the operator's rifles cut sharp paths through the dark, always searching, always closing in. He had seconds, maybe less. His eyes flicked under the bed. Amara lay curled, small hands over her ears, eyes wide in terror, but locked on him with trust that pierced through the chaos. Hold on, baby. Just hold on. Theron Vale's voice carried calm authority, though sweat lined his brow. Careful. Don't hit the child. She's non-negotiable. Non-negotiable. The word hit Evander like ice water. He replayed it, measuring its weight. They didn't just prefer her alive, they required it. Vivian's laugh, soft and cruel, cut through. He's still guessing. He doesn't know. Cassius, hunched against the wall, wheezed laughter too, broken and bitter. Tell him, Vivian. Let him choke on it. Evander's jaw tightened. What game are you playing? Vivian stepped into a thin shaft of light, blood streaking her arm, but her poise unshaken. You thought she was just our daughter. Yours or mine. That's what made this so easy. His stomach twisted. What are you talking about? Her smile sharpened. She isn't yours, Evander. The words detonated inside him, louder than the gunfire had been. His body went rigid. For a moment, the battlefield disappeared. It was just him, the woman he thought he knew, and the knife of truth she had been sharpening for years. Amara whimpered under the bed. Daddy. Vivian crouched near the frame, eyes gleaming with malice. No, sweetheart. He's not your father. He's just a uniform that was convenient. Your real blood, she flicked her gaze to Cassius, has been here the whole time. Cassius's grin stretched wide, feverish. Mine. She's mine. The ground beneath Evander seemed to split. His knees threatened to buckle. Every memory, the first time he held Amara, the lullabies, the bedtime prayers, rushed back with a savage twist. "No," he whispered, voice breaking. "No, you're lying." But Vivian's calm eyes told him she wasn't, and Cassius's trembling smile confirmed it. Theron's voice cut in, sharp and decisive. "Enough sentiment. The girl is the key. Her bloodline ties the insurance, the estate, and the leverage. That's why she stays alive. That's why you don't." The truth hit like shrapnel. Amara wasn't leverage against Evander. She was the asset. They needed her breathing for money, power, for some sick inheritance scheme. Evander was just the obstacle. "Daddy," Amara cried, her voice cracking with terror. She hadn't heard Vivian's venom, hadn't understood it. Or maybe she refused to. To her, he was still everything. Evander swallowed hard, forcing the soldier back to the surface. The betrayal seared, but he couldn't collapse now. He had to anchor himself in one truth. She is my daughter, no matter what blood says. And I will not let them take her. Theron raised his hand. "Take the shot. Put him down." The operators shifted, rifle steady. Evander exhaled slowly, centering his aim. He fired. 1, 2, 3 quick bursts. Not at men, but at the ceiling joists above them. Wood splintered. Plaster rained down. The beam of one operator's rifle snapped out as debris crushed his light. Confusion rippled through their formation. Evander surged forward, sliding across the floor, grabbing Amara's hand from beneath the bed. "With me," he barked. She scrambled out, clinging to his side. Bullets chewed through the mattress. Evander yanked Amara behind the dresser, shielding her with his body. He reloaded, movements mechanical, precise. "Stop them!" Vivian screamed, hysteria cracking her polished mask. Cassius lunged, knife in hand, eyes blazing. Evander met him head-on, their bodies colliding in the dark. The blade slashed, grazing Evander's arm, but he twisted Cassius's wrist until the knife clattered to the floor. With a brutal elbow, he sent his brother sprawling into the operator's line of fire. A single shot rang out. Cassius screamed, clutching his thigh as blood pooled beneath him. "Hold fire!" Theron bellowed, fury boiling. "We need the girl." Evander pulled Amara tighter against him. Her tears wet his uniform, but her grip was strong, unrelenting. The soldier in him whispered tactics. The father in him whispered promise. Both agreed on one thing. This was the final stand. Dust choked the air. Bullets cracked the walls. The operators closed in. And Evander, battered, bleeding, betrayed, rose to meet them. One last barrier between his daughter and the darkness that wanted to claim her. Dust hung in the air like breath you could see. Evander kept his palm over Amara's crown, feeling the heat of her scalp, the tremor in her bones. Weapon lights jittered across the walls as the operators fanned, tightening their arc. Every click of a boot on glass sounded like a clock running out. "End it," Cassius croaked from the floor, pressing a shaking hand to his bleeding thigh. "Finish him so we can go." "Not yet," Theron Vale said, muzzle fixed, voice calm enough to scare. "We do this clean." "Clean." Evander tasted the word like iron. He counted bodies, 3 in the room, more stack in the hall, and mapped the angles. The mattress he'd flipped gave them a thin slice of cover. The dresser could become a barricade. The child's room had one gift no Warzone did: familiarity. He knew every squeak in these boards, every draft in these walls. He slid his gaze to the bed frame. Beneath the dust ruffle, a red dot blinked, tiny, steady. Not a laser. A camera indicator. The younger cop's body cam. In a scramble, he'd fallen near the bed. The lens faced the room, the little light still wincing alive. Evander raised his voice, clear, pitch to carry. "Theron, say it again. Make him the event. Let your men hear it." Theron's eyes cut to him. For heartbeat pride flared, careless and hot. "You are the event, Harlow. That's the point." Click. The cam's diode blinked, faithful. Evander felt a thread of hope bite down. Evidence. If they walked out breathing. "Daddy," Amara whispered, voice raw. "I'm scared." He swallowed and bent so his forehead touched hers for a second. A soldier's prayer made flesh. "Stay with me. On my count." Vivian edged, blood slicking her wrist, eyes bright with a rehearsed grief she'd wear later. You can't win this, Evander. Hand her over and don't make her watch. He didn't look at her. 3. He breathed to Amara. Theron stiffened. Don't. 2. The nearest operator shifted, rifles converging, beams blinding. 1. Evander heaved the dresser with a grunt, all his weight behind it. Wood screamed as it skated across the boards and smashed into 2 operators at the threshold. One went down hard. The other bounced into the door jamb, muzzle skidding skyward. Evander fired low, cracking the nearer man's shin. He folded with a roar, weapon clattering into the hall. Theron shot back. The round tore splinters from the dresser edge and scored Evander's forearm. He yanked Amara into the gap as the barricade jammed the doorway, bottlenecking the advance. Move! Theron barked, fury at last thinning the polish. He came fast, slicing around the dresser's corner, gun out. Evander met him mid-step, chain in his hand like a rope. He snapped it over Theron's wrist and wrenched. Bone knocked wood, the pistol tumbled. Evander drove a shoulder into Theron's chest. They hit the wall in a crash of frames and glass. Theron's elbow found Evander's wound. White pain flashed. Evander answered with a headbutt, short, mean training clothes. Theron sagged, stunned. Evander kicked the fallen gun under the bed, where the other had already vanished, and felt, for an instant, the absurd comedy of an arsenal the room kept swallowing. Go! He hissed to Amara, pointing to the window. She slid on her knees, hands fumbling at the latch. It stuck. She threw her whole small weight against it. It popped with a bark. Cold night air knifed in. Vivian lunged, fingers hooking Amara's sleeve. Evander grabbed Vivian's wrist and twisted. Her breath left her in a hiss. Don't touch her, he said, voice low enough to scare. He wrenched her away and shoved her into the dresser. The mirror, already spidered, collapsed in a glittering wave. Asset moving, an operator shouted from the hall. Hold fire on the child, another answered, automatic drilled. Evander scooped Amara under the arms and boosted her through the window. Her knees found the sill, then the shingles. On your belly, he ordered. Keep low. Crawl to the left gutter. Don't stop. She nodded, teeth clenched, ponytail snapping in the wind as she wormed onto the roof. Theron surged again, bull-strong in his anger. They grappled, forearms locking, boots grinding glass. Evander ducked a swing and slammed the heel of his hand into Theron's throat. Not to crush, just to stun. It worked. Theron gagged, sagged, just enough. Evander vaulted the sill. The night slapped them, cold, loud, alive. The roof pitched gentle, but slick with dust. Down on the lawn, 2 more masked men turned their faces up, rifle lights jerking to find targets. Eyes! Roof! One shouted. Red dots found Evander's chest, then slid to Amara crawling toward the gutter. She moves, she doesn't get hit, the other corrected, the line they'd been fed winning out over panic. Primary is the male. Evander stretched flat, one arm around Amara as a shield, the other dragging them both in a slow, scraping crawl along the shingles. Splinters bit his palms. The night smelled like damp leaves and hot wiring. A gloved hand punched through the window behind them. An operator tried to wedge his rifle through the broken pane for a clean shot. Evander spun, fired twice. The muzzle flash lit a mask like a photograph. The man jerked back, weapon clattering inside. Below, a porch spotlight snapped on, motion sensor woken by movement. Across the street, a second-floor window slid up. A neighbor leaned out with a phone, whispering, "Oh my God," the lens steady, the little red record, light, a tiny moon. "Get down," Evander called to him, unexpected and fierce. "Call 911, real police." I did," the neighbor stammered, ducking. Sirens answered a beat later, different tone, different cadence. County rigs, the real ones, growing from rumor to sound of presence. Theron staggered back to the window, blood at his lip, eyes burning. "Take the shot," he snarled in his mic, Harlow only. No one fired. Hesitation seeped along the roofline. A new equation forming as the neighborhood woke, as a camera watched, as distant blue began to strobe against the trees. Evander slid the last foot with Amara tucked to him, their shoulders touching the cold metal of the gutter. He felt her breath on his neck, steady now, brave, because he asked her to be. On three we dropped to the porch, he said. Knees bent. Stay behind me. She nodded, tiny and fierce. Three, she echoed, because he needed her to. Behind them glass crunched. Inside, boots hammered. Below, lasers jittered like insects. And out on the street, the first wash of real blue rolled the night a different color. Evander looked back through the broken window at Theron Vale, and for a heartbeat man and man saw each other clean. One trying to bury the truth, one dragging it into air. Three, Evander said, and moved. The gutter groaned under Evander's boots as he lowered himself. One arm wrapped around Amara, the other gripping the edge. Wind bit cold against their faces. Below, the porch roof slanted steep, but it was solid. He dropped, knees bent, body curled over his daughter. The shingles thudded against his back, pain blooming hot across his shoulder. Stay low, he whispered, rolling her gently off him. Amara's eyes were huge, her breath sharp, but she nodded. She pressed herself flat against the roof, just like he'd taught her in those make-believe drills when she was small. Pretend storms, pretend soldiers, pretend safety. Except tonight was no pretend. Above, the window shattered wider. Theron Vale leaned out, face cut with fury, pistol back in his hand. You're not walking out of this, Harlow. Evander slid his daughter behind the chimney stack, shielding her from sight lines. He raised his pistol and returned fire, 2 sharp cracks. One bullet scored brick near Theron's face, the other shattered the pane beside him. The detective jerked back inside, cursing. From the lawn, masked operators repositioned. Red dots danced across the shingles, hungry insects looking for flesh. Then, another sound cut through. Louder sirens growing. Not the false cadence of Theron's mercenaries. These were real. County cruisers, engines straining, lights painting the trees in frantic blue. Units 2 blocks out. A mercenary barked over his calm panic, slipped into his tone. We're burned. Vivian's voice shrieked from inside, raw and desperate now. No. Finish it. Finish him before they get here. Evander clutched Amara tighter. This is it, he whispered, more to himself than her. His body was battered, his arm heavy, but resolve steadied his breath. Stay down. No matter what happens, stay down. The first police cruiser screeched into view, blue strobes bouncing across the lawn. Real officers spilled out, weapons drawn, barking commands. Drop your guns. Hands where we can see them. For the first time, the mercenaries faltered. Their rifles wavered, beams jerking uncertain. They weren't ghosts anymore. They were criminals under floodlight. Theron's roar came from inside. Hold your ground. One shot. Just one. But no one fired. The balance had shifted. Evander saw his chance. He pulled Amara up, cradled her against his chest, and slid off the porch roof. They hit the lawn hard. His knees screamed, his shoulder flared, but he rolled with it, absorbing the impact. Amara clung to him, sobbing, but alive. Police! On the ground, a county officer shouted, leveling his rifle. Evander raised his free hand, pistol dangling loose in the other. I'm a victim. Inside, corrupt detective, armed mercenaries, my wife. His voice cracked. They've been trying to kill my daughter. The officers surged forward, eyes sharp, barrels trained on the house. Then Theron appeared at the window again, bloodied, but standing, pistol aimed square at the lawn. His eyes locked on Evander, hate pure and blinding. No witnesses, he snarled. Evander had seconds. He turned, wrapped Amara fully beneath him, and aimed. One shot. Theron's body jerked. The gun flew from his hand. He toppled backward, crashing out of sight. Silence followed, broken only by the wail of sirens. Officers stormed the house, boots pounding, shouts echoing. More gunfire cracked inside. Mercenaries resisting, Cassius screaming, Vivian shrieking her denials. The battle inside raged, but outside, Evander knelt on the cold grass with Amara in his arms. Daddy, she whispered into his chest, voice hoarse but steady. You came back. His throat closed. He held her tighter, pressing his face into her hair. Always, he choked. Always, Amara. You're mine. No matter what they say, you're mine. Blue lights washed across their faces. Real officers surrounded them, forming a shield. Minutes stretched like hours before the chaos inside collapsed. Two mercenaries dragged out in cuffs. Cassius carried on a stretcher, Vivian screaming her innocence as she was shoved into the back of a cruiser. Theron Vale, silent now, covered, his face pale, under the sheet. Evander didn't watch them. His world had narrowed to the small girl in his arms, trembling but alive. The paramedic crouched beside them. She okay? Evander kissed Amara's hair. She's okay. She's safe. The medic looked at him. And you? Evander's eyes burned. He managed a tired smile. I've been worse. As the night finally eased, the weight of betrayal still clawed at him. The truth about Vivian, about Cassius, about Amara's bloodline. But it didn't matter. Blood was biology. Fatherhood was choice. And Evander chose. He carried Amara toward the ambulance, his arms steady around her. The battlefield hadn't followed him home. It had been waiting for him. But he had fought it. And for once, he hadn't fought alone. His daughter was with him. And that was enough.